the voice of power there. So hello, well, thank you very much for joining us tonight on the celebration of the launch of A Game of Murder, which is the new book by Michael Davies, who sat here. So what we thought we'd do tonight is have probably about half an hour of chat, and then we'd open the floor for questions, and then, you know, just come over, have a chat, sign up for the book, the newsletter, you know, buy a book if you like, get it signed, whatever you like, just come for a natter, whatever. So that's the plan. Does that sound all right? Good. So let's begin. Michael Davies. Can you not hear?
Yeah.
Can you hear all right?
Yeah.
All right. So tell us about A Game of Murder.
Can you hear me? Is that working?
No, you switched it off.
It is on, it's just a bit quiet. So A Game of Murder is the second in a series, the Cosy Crime Club mysteries. The first was Murder by the Book, which came out in January, and that one introduces readers to the quaint bookshop and its reading group. I'm going to have to be really careful what I say because I'm aware that I'm sat in a bookshop with reading groups. And I have to apologise in advance, Shell, because, and this is a little bit of a spoiler but not much because it happens in chapter 1, the manager of the bookshop becomes the victim.
Oh.
I'm okay with that.
If it makes a good story, it's fine.
And then, so the four members of the reading group use the skills that they have learned from the detective fiction that they've read to investigate the crime. So we're introduced to them in book 1. In book 2, they are invited to.
Now we know why the
Just 'cause you get
killed.
In book 2, they are invited to a remote country house as guests of honour for the weekend, ostensibly to inspect the library of the country house, because by this point, of course, they've become fairly well known. And so they visit the country house and almost immediately become snowed in. And if you're familiar with a certain board game that's set in a country house and features a murder, you'll be able to follow the trail through the chapters of A Game of Murder. The chapters are actually broken down into rooms, so there's a billiard room, there's a conservatory, there's a study, and the action moves through the house with a variety of, what shall I say, implements, you could say weapons perhaps, along the way, and some characters who, it's a bit more subtle with the characters, but there are definitely references to the characters in that board game. So if you want to play the game as you go along, spotting what the references are, then you can do that, as well as obviously trying to solve the mystery.
Lovely. So is this, well, we've got 3 books on the poster. Is it a trilogy? Is it a series? It's always going to be the same reading group, I take it.
It is the same reading group. At the moment, it's a trilogy. The third one, From Murder with Love, which you might well have guessed because each of them has a certain sort of theme to them. This one is related to a well-known spy franchise. And that one will be out later in the year. I think at the moment it's scheduled for August, but it could be under discussion. But it's the same reading group who solve and investigate and hopefully solve the crimes along the way. And at the moment it's a trilogy. You'd have to ask my publishers whether there's going to be any more afterwards, but I would like to think so. Yeah.
Lovely. So we've got 4 characters from the reading group who become sort of sleuths. So what drew you to Cosy Crimes, and who are your sleuths that started the passion for this kind of writing?
Well, I've always enjoyed. It's called Cosy Crime these days. It wasn't always called that. If you go back to sort of what they call the golden age of crime, people like Agatha Christie, or even before that, Arthur Conan Doyle with Sherlock Holmes, those kind of classic murder mysteries. The first one I think I read some of the Sherlock Holmes short stories as a teenager, and then the first Agatha Christie I read was the ABC Murders. Does anybody know the ABC Murders? Which uses train timetables as a kind of theme and a thread to the mystery. And I think once you're in them, you're kind of hooked, and that's how I got into them in the first place. And I read people like Dorothy L. Sayers, the Lord Peter Wimsey mysteries, and Guy Marsh, another contemporary of Christie's. So really, it was that kind of golden age that got me into it in the first place. And then when it came to creating a team of amateur sleuths, I knew that I wanted to pay tribute really to all of those authors and characters that I loved growing up. So there are a lot of references to really everyone from Marple and Poirot and Holmes, through to some more obscure ones, some telly ones as well. So Columbo gets a reference. Trying to think who else is in there, but you certainly be able to kind of tick them off as you go. Yeah.
So the way you're talking about it, it sounds a lot. I know you've sort of said not so much cosy crime, but it doesn't sound gritty, shall we say?
I think it's safe to say it's not gritty. Yeah. I knew I didn't want to do a police procedural. I didn't feel that I knew enough about that to be able to make it authentic and credible. And I also, personally, I didn't feel that, dark and grim was where I wanted to sit with it. I think there's quite a lot of that about in the real world without me adding to it. So, it's difficult to write about murder without there being some kind of, I was going to say violence, but actually, pretty much all the violence in these happens off the page. It's not gruesome. I don't go into forensic detail about the victims and what's happened to them and stuff. And the intention was to make it fairly light-hearted. I was going to say a bit like those Golden Age ones, but some of those can be, Christie can get really dark. But don't go looking for dark in these, because it ain't there.
So I'm trying to work out how to say this without offending him. You've published later in life, shall we say?
I'm an old man.
So what can we sort of know a bit about your journey to this point, if you like? Not particularly with the writing, but what did you do before you started writing your novel?
Well, out of school, I started training as a journalist on my local newspaper down south. I'm not from around these parts. And I spent 20 years actually in newspapers, in regional papers, sort of all over the country, and became a newspaper editor. And like a lot of journalists, I think, we all think we've got a book in us. And so when the opportunity arose, 2002, to actually step away from the newspapers and have a go at writing that novel that I'd been thinking about for a long time, I sort of grabbed that with both hands and had a go at it. And I wrote the novel, and it was rubbish, and it's still tucked away in a secret file on the computer, never to see the light of day. It was one of those things, people say write what you know, write about what you know. So I wrote about newspapers, and my novel was about a mystery that a newspaper reporter then solved. But I'd never written at that length before. I mean, obviously I'd written for 20 years, but I'd written 500 words or 1,000 words at a time, and non-fiction, journalism. So I was learning a new skill, which is why it took a while to kind of get into it. And then things took a very different path. I stayed in fiction, but moved away from books. So having written that first one, the next thing that came along was an opportunity to write a stage play, an adaptation actually of a Dickens novel, Pickwick Papers. And that sort of came out of the blue, but I thought, okay, I'll give this a go, and really enjoyed doing that. And then off the back of that, I sort of picked up stuff as I went, and then I thought, actually, I need some formal training in how to do this properly. And at the time, the plan was to go into television, to write for TV. So I actually did an MA in TV script writing, which introduced me to lots of different disciplines for writing fiction and writing scripts in particular. And I came out of that and wrote another stage play, of course, as you do. And then at that stage play, I was very fortunate to win what is now the Bristol Old Vic Playwriting Prize. So that then took me back into plays, and I wrote a couple more plays, all the while trying to get into TV. And I graduated from my MA at just the wrong moment, because the TV industry right at that point went shoo, and it all disappeared. So the streamers were starting to get really big then, and they were sort of hoovering up material and content. And you might think, oh, that's great, there's lots of opportunity to write for them, but most of that work was going to the States, and at the same time, the knock-on effect of it on TV here was that everybody's budgets shrank, because all the big budgets were going to Netflix and the streamers. So the opportunities to get into TV were diminishing and very rapidly. All the people who'd been running shows went back to being kind of jobbing writers on shows that were already existing, and all those jobbing writers went back and took the work that had been available for people getting into the industry. So they're really, 15 years ago, the BBC ran 4 continuing dramas, was their umbrella term for it. So you had Holby, you had Casualty, you had EastEnders, and you had Doctors. And the traditional way in was Doctors, which had a very open-door policy to new writers. And people would go in, they'd do a Doctors, or 2 or 3 Doctors episodes, and if they worked, and if the producers were happy, and you seemed like you were easy to work with, they would then introduce you to the EastEnders script editors or the Casualty producers. So you could kind of grow a career like that. By 2015, that had pretty much gone, and now there's no Holby, there's no Doctors. New writers can't get a gig on EastEnders or Casualty because they're full of the writers who used to write Holby and Doctors, and so that all disappeared.
But you did do some TV script writing.
I did do some TV. It was non-fiction. I'd gone back to non-fiction, but interestingly, it was non-fiction about crime. So I worked on a few shows, things like Meet, Marry, Murder. I can't think of the names of it. It was a few years ago now.
But they were a bit gritty.
They were gritty, and they were true crime, and they were they weren't sensationalist, but they were dramatic, in both senses of the word. So I was able to use the skills of telling a dramatic story, but using existing, real life cases. And for me, because that's not my natural territory, there was only so much of that I wanted to do. So I did a bit and then moved away from it again. Just at the moment, fortunately, and luck has played a big part, at the point at which I got approached by HarperCollins to look at a draft manuscript that had been written 40 years earlier by one of their biggest authors, Desmond Bagley. I don't know if anybody, you may not remember or have come across Desmond Bagley. He's pretty much forgotten now. But in the 60s and 70s, he was the world's #1 best-selling thriller writer. And now nobody's heard of him. It's so bizarre. But HarperCollins were his publishers. He died in 1983, and in 2017, thereabouts, somebody had gone to his archive of papers, which sits in a university in Boston, Massachusetts, and discovered a manuscript that he had written in 1972 and then put away and never went back to. And I had been in touch with HarperCollins some years before with a view to writing a biography of Desmond Bagley. I'd read all of his books when I was growing up and I'd loved them. And I had contacted HarperCollins in about 1999 to say, what about a biography? They said no. They said, by that point he had fallen out of recollection. They said they didn't think there was a market for it, so they didn't really want to pursue that. But off the back of that conversation, I kept in touch with HarperCollins. So when this manuscript turned up, they contacted me sort of out of the blue again and said, here's this manuscript being discovered, would you like to read it? And I, big fan of Bagley, of course, I said, yeah, that'd be great. So I read it, and to cut a long story short, I did them a manuscript report on it, which they took to the trustees of the Bagley estate, trying to persuade them to allow HarperCollins to publish it. The trustees said, it's a first draft, it needs work, we can't publish it like it is. And HarperCollins then at that point came back to me and said, how do you fancy doing the work on it to make it a publishable manuscript?
So what was it like writing a book that wasn't your book?
That was pretty weird, actually. It was a complete manuscript, so it started at the beginning, it got to the end, it had an end. There was quite a lot of correspondence between Bagley and his then editor about what he wasn't happy with and what he would do to it if he went back and did a second draft. So I had a pretty clear idea of what he would have done and how he would have worked on it. And because I knew all his work anyway, I felt like I knew how he worked, how he wrote, his style. But I did have a sense while I was working on it of him sat at my shoulder saying things like, yeah, I'm not sure I'd use that word, try something different. So that was a bit strange, but we got a complete manuscript, and HarperCollins published it, and this is it. It wasn't called Domino Island to begin with. That was a title that we came up with later, and was my first proper foot in the door with book publishing. And then off the back of that, 2023. Sorry, yeah.
What was it called?
It was called Because Sultan Died. So the main character was called Sultan, and what happens in the book is a kind of sequence. So one thing happens, and because that happens, and at the beginning he's died, and somebody is investigating. And he discovers that because he died, then something else happened, and then something else happened, and so there's this sort of chain reaction of events, which is why it was called that. I and HarperCollins didn't really feel that was a sort of catchy title, and didn't really fit with the other titles that he had come up with.
But I thought he'd written on the manuscript,
Yeah.
so you can think of something better.
Yeah, so the title page read, "Because Sultan died," and then in his penciled handwriting underneath, "Unless you can think of something better." Yeah. So we felt that we were allowed to change the title. And actually I suggested, because of this chain reaction thing, Domino, and it's set on a Caribbean island, so I suggested Domino Island, and they said, yeah, that's great, let's go with that. And then 2023 was the centenary of Desmond Bagley's birth, and he had grown up in Blackpool. Moved here with his family. They ran a boarding house in Lord Street, just near the station. And he had been a very kind of lonely child. He would take himself off to the Central Library and just sit and read books. So he was a self-taught reader and then later writer. And they wanted to commemorate the centenary somehow. And they, again, got back in touch with me and said, we're thinking we might do, I don't know, some new covers or new editions or something. Have you got any bright ideas? And I said, well, actually, funny you should mention that, because I think the main character in Domino Island has got more mileage in him. I think there's another book, at least, in this character. What about doing an original new story, but using the same character from Domino Island, this insurance investigator? And they, fortunately for me, said, yeah, that sounds great, let's do that. And so I then wrote entirely original, this Outback is what it became, using that character and then putting him in a completely new setting and a new story. And that came out as they billed it as the Desmond Bagley Centenary novel, and that came out in 23. And they were happy enough, and it went well enough that they said, can we have another one, please? So Thin Ice then became the third in the Bill Kemp trilogy, and that came out in 2024.
So these aren't whodunits, these are action-adventure, set in the
Thrillers,
70s.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a story behind that, in that Bagley was trying to write really a murder mystery with Domino Island, or the book that became Domino Island. He was pretty prolific. He would write a book a year, usually between January and March, and then he and his wife would go off travelling the world to research the next book that he was going to write, so I aspire to that.
Me too.
Yeah. But in 71, he had writer's block. And he spent most of 1971 trying to write a new book and failing. And in the correspondence with the publishers, he said, I've had 4 books that I've started that have collapsed on me, and I didn't know what to do. So what I'm going to do is try something completely different. I'm going to try a murder mystery, essentially. So that's why he started that manuscript. He got about 2/3 of the way through and then realised that that wasn't him at all. So it reverts to more typical Bagley, the action-adventure thriller stuff at that point. But so he had started out trying to write a murder mystery. I think one of the problems for him was he was what's known these days as a pantser. Have you come across that term? So writers fall into one of two camps. They are plotters, or they're pantsers, as in writing by the seat of their pants. So some people don't plan at all. Some people plan meticulously. Some fall somewhere in between. He was completely a pantser. He would start with a character or an incident or a location sometimes, and think, oh, that's quite interesting. I'll start there, and he would see where the story took him, where the characters took him. You can't really do that with murder mysteries. They kind of have to be really carefully plotted, or at the very least, you've got to know roughly where you're going so that you can seed ideas and clues and red herrings and characters who come in and out, and it's really hard to do a murder mystery by the seat of your pants. And I think that's what he discovered 2/3 of the way through. So he kind of gave that up, and it tells you who's at the heart of the mystery at about page 250 of 350, and the rest of it is just slap bang all up to the end of the book. It's real kind of breathless excitement stuff. What was the question?
I was just saying, it's set in the 70s and it's action adventure. That was your first trilogy. But these three, well, we've got three so far, are set today.
Yeah.
And a different genre altogether.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious of, the time, that's set in different times.
Yeah.
And different genres. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so we did talk at one point about possibly updating the Bagley to the present day, and we vetoed that mainly because, well, two reasons really. One, because it felt more true to Bagley to be set at the time that he had written it, but also because not having mobile phones and Google and all of that stuff available to the characters sets up a different challenge, really. So they have to use their own initiative and their own resources and their own knowledge and training, rather than simply, phoning 999 or looking something up on the internet. So I quite liked that sort of period thing, and I don't know if I should admit, I was alive in 1972, so I kind of remember what things were like then. So in a way, there's a bit of sort of nostalgia threaded through it as well, which is quite fun to write.
So can I ask what stopped you doing this reading group? Because you talk about the golden age of detectives being the 30s. Why did you choose to set that today?
Well, I think it would be a bit presumptuous to compete with Agatha Christie and Sherlock Holmes and all that stuff. And actually, not so much that that's all been done, but they were so brilliant at it that the danger for me, I think, was that it would just start to read like parody. And I didn't want to do a parody. I wanted to do an affectionate tribute, actually. So although, they're quite knowing, they're self-aware, and there's lots of references to that stuff. But I hope, my aim was not to poke fun at it. That's not what they're about. It is that idea of an affectionate tribute. And I wanted to do something modern because I hadn't done that with these ones. And I liked the idea of the bookshop reading group using the skills of the detective fiction that they'd read to investigate the murder of the bookshop manager. So that was the premise for the first one. And then once we'd established the team, the amateur sleuths, then it was a case of, okay, well, let's have some fun with this now. We meet them, we get introduced to them. They're a pretty odd assortment. So there's a retired academic, Professor Stone, who thinks he's the leader, but the others don't necessarily agree with him. There's a struggling actor who has adopted the stage name Harrison Ford because he thinks it'll help his career. Backfires slightly.
Equity will be on his case.
Well, indeed. There's a would-be writer, a teaching assistant called Lauren, who is trying to write and has started several novels and is trying to work out. I suppose she's trying to find her voice, really. And then the newest member of the group is a sort of not abused but downtrodden wife who is using the reading group as an escape, really, from her domestic drudgery, I guess. And her arrival at the reading group sets off lots of interesting new dynamics, and people start thinking in different ways and making different decisions. So she's the newbie, but is sort of the driving force through the first one, the one that makes things happen, even if she doesn't actually do them herself. So then, having established that quartet, the next one was the board game one. I'm really trying not to say the name for the same reasons as the equity name. Putting them into a snowbound remote country mansion for a weekend seemed like a fun idea. And then the third one, the one that's out later in the year, again, I'm a huge fan of that particular franchise. So again, that was great, just great fun to take this quartet of amateur sleuths and drop them in international espionage. I mean, what, how, why, how's that going to work out? So.
Excellent. So it's called The Quaint Bookshop, is the bookshop.
That's right.
And it's set in Norchester.
Norster.
Oh, Norster.
Norster.
But it's written Norchester. Says the Americans.
Just for the Americans, yeah. So the Quaint Bookshop is named after Lord Quaint, and each book begins with a chapter, the final chapter of a Lord Quaint novel. Lord Quaint is my invention, but he's kind of a bit like Poirot and Marple and Lord Peter Wimsey, all of those tropes, I guess. So that opening chapter of each book is the closing chapter of a Lord Quaint novel, and it's full of Easter eggs and possibly clues. I won't be drawn too much on that.
So that's the book the reading group are reading? That's
the book that the reading group are reading when the book proper begins. And sometimes, so the Lord Quaint book in the first one is set in a country house, which then becomes the setting for the second actual book. And there's various ideas and things dropped into those Lord Quaint books that resurface elsewhere in the trilogy.
And Norster?
Norster is a completely fictional place, nothing like the town I grew up, which happened to be Northampton. But if you know Northampton at all, you might spot some similarities. But essentially, it's kind of any medium-sized town. And I decided I didn't want to set it in an actual place. Because I wanted the freedom to be able to put it. I mean, Norster, for instance, has a tram. Northampton doesn't have a tram. Not many places do. But if you tried to pin it down to, if it's got a tram, it must be Manchester or Blackpool or Nottingham or somewhere. There are other things about Norster that don't fit with that. So it just allowed me really to cherry pick the bits that I wanted.
Okay.
Oh.
So, how long did it take you to do this latest 3 books?
Well, that ought to be an easy question to answer. The actual writing of them, when they first asked for them, they said we would quite like to do 3 in quick succession because we can build up a bit of momentum, we can do some marketing and promotion on the back of it. Hence, 3 book covers on one poster. How fast do you think you could write 3? And I probably rather foolishly said, I could probably do that in a year. And they said, great, let's do that. We'll have them in a year. So at that point, I then had to write three books in a year. And I wrote three manuscripts in that year, but that's a bit misleading because that doesn't take into account what I call my brewing time. So, you'll have an idea for something and then it needs to percolate, and that can be anything from a fortnight to 6 months, depending on what it is. So there was that going on in the background. And then also, of course, once you deliver a manuscript, that's not the end of it either, because you've then got to go through a process of editing. And there may be 2, 3, 4, who knows how many iterations of that you go through before you finally get to a point where they say, okay, this is the final version, this is what we're going to publish. And that kind of took it over a year. It wasn't a case of, let's have 3 books, and then a year later 3 books were ready to go. But the actual physical sitting down and typing them was probably a year, yeah.
I know that takes quite a lot of discipline.
Well, I think a lot of that came out of newspapers, actually. I'm one of those weird people who likes a deadline. Lots of people don't, for obvious reasons. I mean, I can procrastinate, yeah, but I do like to have a deadline to work towards, and I'm very self-conscious about not missing a deadline. For me, it focuses the mind, and I can plan the work schedule to that point, give or take. And in newspapers, of course, you haven't got the luxury of sitting down at your desk and going, what shall I write about today? How many words shall I write? I'll see what happens. Because you've got an editor breathing down your neck saying, I need that 500-word piece by 11 o'clock. And if you don't deliver it, it doesn't go in the paper. It's as simple as that. So I'd had that, I'd had 20 years of that sort of drilled into me. So the actual discipline of doing it, I'm looking for some wood to touch. So far, I haven't, has worked for me. Let's put it that way.
So far, so good.
So far, so good.
So, a bit of bragging's going to happen now, because I'm very delighted to say congratulations, because Murder by the Book got to #1 in Amazon.com and has got a little bestseller sign on it now. It only got to #2 in Amazon.co.uk, but #2 is pretty darn cool. But actually getting #1 and
yeah. So in 2 categories actually, in cozy mysteries and in amateur sleuths, and it's such a surreal thing, because the editor, the publishers send you an email with a little screenshot of Amazon. And there's your book with a little #1 next to it, and then beside it, with a little #2 next to it, is Richard Osman. And you go, what? How has that happened? What? The world has gone mad. But yeah, I mean.
And #3 was Agatha Christie.
And #3 was Agatha Christie. It was.
For that hour on that day.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah, so that was really, really exciting, yeah.
Does that give you any pressure with this next book?
Thanks, I hadn't really thought of that. Now you mention it. But what's really interesting about it is that I'm being really careful not to take any of it for granted. And I am extremely conscious that it is, you guys, people, groups like yours, people in cafes like this, taking an interest and reading books that enable that to happen. So, I mean, apart from anything else, thank you. Whatever you don't have to buy the book. I'm sure would love it if you did. I would certainly love it if you did. But if you want to go and borrow it from the library, that's fantastic too. The point is keep reading those books, because it really does make a difference.
Okay. Shall I ask what happens next, or shall I open it?
Well, we know what happens next. It's this one, yeah. and if you want to know where we are with that, the line edit. So that's now the 3rd set of edits on that one. I will be sending back to the publisher tomorrow, and we'll see what happens then, whether I get another set of edits or not.
I don't know whether to ask you about I'll leave you to ask him about the editing process if you're interested. We got any questions? Yes?
Sorry, I was going to say, you mentioned the Lord Quaid books, like they're kind of like the in-universe Poirot. do you ever see yourself writing a book under the name of Lord Quaint?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. I certainly have toyed with the idea of writing a Lord Quaint novel. It wouldn't be any of the ones in these three because the final chapters of those are all already there, so it would be a bit of a spoiler, I think. But it would be quite fun. The danger with it is it would be that thing that I was talking about before about becoming a parody. The quaint chapter at the beginning of each book is about as close as it gets to parody. And I don't know if I could sustain it over a whole book. I don't know. And I guess that might be down to whether the publishers would want that as well. At the moment, I've got lots of ideas for the foursome and different places that I might take them to and situations to put them in. I need to talk to them a bit more, I think, first.
Just to ask about the editing process. When they send your manuscript back, are they rewrites of sections, or is it continuity stuff that they pick up on? What sort of things are they asking you to do when they send it back?
Yeah, that depends how bad it was in the first place. So it's actually been quite a different process with all three of these. So the first one I wrote in its entirety just off the basis of a one-paragraph pitch that I had given to the publishers that they had greenlit. And so I delivered that manuscript and I got a set of notes back that were, I think the word might be substantial.
After class.
And so structurally, that first draft, or I say first draft, it was about the fourth or fifth draft. The draft that I delivered to them needed an awful lot of work structurally. And so that took much longer than I was expecting it to. And I think probably more than they were expecting as well. So there was quite a lot of that major, rebuilding, moving stuff about, cutting stuff, writing new stuff, just to get it into a sort of a shape that was going to work. Then it went through a series of copy edits, line edits, proofs, and the rest of the process. A Game of Murder, I did differently. So I wrote a full chapter breakdown that I delivered to the publishers. Now I had done a chapter breakdown of the first one, but that only for my benefit when I was writing it. And on the second one, because of the experience with the first one, I said, look, have a look at this and make sure you're happy with this before I actually write it, because it's much easier to get it right there before you write it than it is to go back at it afterwards. And there was a bit of toing and froing with that, and eventually we settled on a structure that we were all happy with, and then I wrote it. And the third one, I did the same thing with that, but with writer's delight, I delivered them the chapter breakdown, and the note I got back from it was, "This is great. We don't need to do anything to this," and so I could then just sit and write it. And that's the sweet spot. The writers in the room will know. If somebody says to you, "Yeah, great," it's in great shape as it is. Okay, I mean that's a massive relief and a huge time saver as well, because you don't have to do all of that reworking, rebuilding, restructuring. So in terms of the actual editing, that structural one is the first one, and you hope it's not going to be too extensive. Then you'll usually get a copy edit, so somebody, maybe a different set of eyes, will have gone through it, and we'll make. That's where things like the inconsistencies might come in, and so on page 13, this character was wearing a yellow hat. 20 pages later, it's blue. What's going? So that you can iron out that kind of stuff. And then you go into line edits, which are very much about the grammar. Should this be a comma or a semicolon, or a, where's the quotation marks here? That kind of fine detail. Then it'll get typeset, and then everybody has to read it again of the final typeset version to make sure that nothing's crept in along the way or been missed. I mean, I had 20 years editing other people's copy in newspapers, and I can safely say nobody can edit their own copy, or if they do, it's just so risky, because you can't see the mistakes in your own work. You just can't. So to have people around you that you can trust to do that and point stuff out is really valuable. And having said all of that, and having been seen by, could be as many as 10, 12 people along the way, readers still spot mistakes. They do. And published books, even published books by the big 5 publishers, by the top name authors, still have mistakes in them. Because, just because. It's so frustrating. But, I remember doing the audiobook for Murder by the Book, and I was reading the typeset version on an iPad, and there were it was probably 6, maybe 8 things that were typos, basically, in the typeset version. And fortunately, it was early enough in the process that I could phone them and say, I found these things while doing the audio, can we still correct them? And there was still time to make those changes. But yeah, that's just the way of the world, unfortunately.
As you've talked about the audiobook, do you want to share your experience of getting the gig of the audiobook?
So I'm a member of Equity. I have done acting work.
Are you actually Harrison Ford?
I couldn't possibly comment. I think I'm all of them. And I've done some voice work and some acting work. And so when it came to the audiobook, I kind of rather tentatively said, could I, would it be okay if I do the audiobook? I'd done the audiobook for both the thrillers, and they said, well, actually, we don't really like authors doing their own audiobooks because most of them aren't very good at it. So not sure about that. So I said, well, I'm an Equity member. I've done some voice work. I've done some acting work. He said, well, send us a sample. So I had to audition to do my own audiobook. So I sent them a sample, and they said, oh, okay, then yeah, all right, you can do it. But actually, it is split between 2 readers. So each chapter is from a different viewpoint of one of the 4 members of the reading group. 2 male, 2 female. So I read the male half, and we have an actor you'll know, Victoria Brazier, if you're in Equity Northwest. She's the Northwest Councillor.
Oh, yeah.
And she does the female voices. So I haven't completely done my audiobook. I've done half my audiobook.
Any more questions? Yes.
Have you used AI at all in your writing?
No!
Would you ever consider it, or is it a definite
No.
Yeah, what's your view?
It's a really contentious issue, this one. And I can only speak for me personally. I know writers who use it in a variety of different ways. Some writers will use it in the planning. Some will get it to help with the sort of structure, the chapter breakdowns. Some could be a bit careful, but no. Why? Some use them to write the books. I mean, there are literally people out there creating. I won't say writing, but creating books in AI. 1,000 of them a year, and you just go, what's the point? What I don't know. Anyway, that's my feeling about it. And the trouble with, I don't know, it's really hard to say I'd never use it for any purpose whatsoever. I would like to think I would never use it for any purpose whatsoever. And really, a lot of that is about, it's about it not being able to do things as well as real people can. So, of course, it's getting better all the time. But I absolutely love the fact, for instance, that book cover, all of them, were designed by the artistic director at HarperCollins, who is brilliant, absolutely gets what you're going for and delivers. And I suppose I could have put a prompt into AI to say, give me this kind of feel, and this is actually I don't know if you spotted the typeface for the word murder is Murder, She Wrote. Mm-hmm. But there's something about it. I mean, I don't think I would have been able to get that sort of quality out of AI. But I guess if you were really good at how you used AI and it was a really refined prompt, you might be able to come up with something. But I still ask myself the question, why?
Do you want to say a bit about your experience of these books with AI?
Oh,
because do you not want to get into it?
Well, no, I'm happy to talk about it. This is the other side of it, of course, as well. These have been put into large language learning models. They have been scraped off the internet and put into AI. So, and I wasn't told about it. Nobody asked my permission, and nobody's paid me any money for it. And the danger, of course, if you pursue that avenue, is nobody's going to be able to afford to write books or make art or create music. It's only rich people, because then they can't make any money out of it. Because if my stuff is being given away for free on the internet, which it is, there are websites out there. You can find Outback on a website that proudly says, get your free books here. And they have stolen my book and put it on there.
The upsetting thing about that, though, is they charge a fee,
Yeah.
whereas you can get it for free from the library.
Yeah. And at least, with the library, the authors get a return from library lendings. It's not the same as somebody buying a copy of the book, but I'm a huge supporter of libraries. We do lots of library talks. Library users are really a really valuable part of the lifeblood of the industry, as are bookshops and reading groups. And I'm absolutely thrilled that I've been able to write about a reading group that is in a way that is going to be, read by readers who go, actually, I recognise that, or I can relate to that, or actually, it's that thing about recognising yourself, isn't it, in art.
You're sorry you're asked now, aren't you?
Interestingly,
No.
today at the London Book Fair, the Society of Authors has launched a new campaign. It's called Human Authored. And what they want, and I'm going to push for with the third one, it's too late for the first two, there's a symbol that they've got that says Human Authored, to have stickers on every book that hasn't used AI. Because I've been surprised at the number of people who are surprised that I haven't used AI. Because, you were talking to somebody the other day.
Someone said to me, he's old school then, he wrote them himself. And I thought, old school, because you wrote your own book.
Yeah. And you kind of think, if people are expecting books to be written with AI, I don't know where that leaves us.
I think it's tragic. I think you lose the skill set if people start doing that. The generations coming up won't know how to do it, will they?
The other thing about it is it's not very good. You know when you do a Google search, you get an AI summary now these days at the top of your Google search, and they get it wrong. If you're trying to research something, don't go by what that AI tells you, because it's wrong.
All right, Grandad.
Well, the view's great from my high horse.
Any more questions?
Yes.
Sorry, go on, yeah.
Okay.
What led you to write the main character? So what was the thought process that went into all the backstory with the husband and everything?
Bella. the new arrival at the reading group. That's a really good question. I knew I wanted a balance across the four of them, partly of gender, partly of age, so they range from about 30 to about 60. And I knew that the youngest was female and that the oldest was male, so the other two could have gone either way in the middle. And then because Harrison Ford then is the second oldest, and he needed to have a bit of world weariness about him, so he's been around the block a few times. He's not cynical, he's just a bit, oh, here we go again kind of thing. And so I suppose in that sense, Bella was the missing bit. But also I didn't want any of them really to be a sort of conventional leading man or leading woman. They've all got their quirks. They're all a little bit odd in their own way. And so for Bella, I wanted to give her something that she was that she was going to overcome, I guess. So her domestic situation is her starting point, and so I'm going to use the J word, her journey to escape that forms quite a central part to particularly book one, but it does continue through the other books as well. So I guess that's really where that came from.
If you had one piece of advice to give to aspiring authors, what would it be? Apart from don't use AI.
You spotted that one. It's really difficult. This is where the imposter syndrome kicks in, because actually there was a great piece of there's a great quote that I picked up on my script writing course, which was by William Golding, who wrote All the President's Men, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, lots of really classic stuff from the 60s and 70s, was the top Hollywood scriptwriter. And his motto really was, nobody knows anything. And we're all making it up as we go along. I mean, literally in the sense of writing stories, but also, you look at social media these days, the number of people offering you advice on how to, you should be posting 3 times a day at least, and never copy your Instagram to your Facebook because there's got to be different. And then, the next post you see says, once a week's fine, and copy from Instagram to Facebook. Nobody really knows. And I've discovered that even the people who you would expect to know don't really. That we're all just making it up. So that I suppose the advice would be trust your own instincts. And that's actually true. Coming back to the editing question, quite often you'll get a note about something in an editorial note, challenging something that you've written, or asking, well, wouldn't it be better if? And you can look at it and go, do you know what? Actually, no. I wrote it like that because it's meant to be like, and it works best like that. And then you can push back and say, I'm happy with it as it is.
I was going to ask what happens if they give you feedback that you're not happy with,
Yeah.
and they try and take you in a direction that you're like, that doesn't feel right for me.
Yeah, I mean, it can get a bit sticky. I've been extremely lucky, again. It hasn't done with any of this. I've had some notes that I've gone, I don't think this person really gets it. But I've been fortunate that if I have pushed back, they've gone, okay. And actually, at the end of the day, it's my name on the book. I'm the author. So, you know, if I really want to put my foot down with something, I'd like to think I can do. I can't imagine a situation where they would say, no, you're wrong about that, you've got to change it. And actually what happens most of the time, you know, the vast majority of the notes that you get, okay, initially you kind of go, hang on a minute, somebody's saying I'm not writing, you know. And then after a day or two, or maybe a week or two or something, you go back to it and you go, yeah, do you know what, actually they're right about that. Or, you know, I mean, sometimes I'll write an alternative version, or if they question a paragraph, and I'll write an alternative paragraph, and look at it and go, yeah, actually, that note has made it better. And that's what you want from an editorial team. You want everybody pointing in the same direction, trying to make the thing the best it can possibly be. And if everybody's doing that, then there's no need to get precious about notes. You can just go, okay, fair enough. And sometimes, you know, if you end up saying, I don't see it that way, and I want to stick with this, okay, well that's fine too.
Are your books aimed at a specific demographic, or are you just hoping that everybody's going to pick them up and read them? I'm just thinking Isaac's obviously read them because he knows your characters.
Yeah.
And he's only 13.
Yeah.
We'll find out what he thinks of them in a minute.
I think he's an exception in every sense of the word. In
a good way.
Yeah. Oh God, absolutely. I think there's two different parts to that. When I'm writing them, I write them for me, and I just hope that other people like it as well. So that starts to shift during the editing process, and other people have a view on it, and a perspective, and an opinion. And then I have to start thinking, okay, well, I might find that line amusing, but actually it's not working in the overall flow, or that character wouldn't say that, or that's too obviously me, not the character. That can sometimes happen. So that can shift a bit. I suppose the big other bit of it is on the marketing side. And I'm in two minds about this. On the one hand, I quite like the idea of saying, I'm the writer. Marketing can sell the book. That's not my job. That's quite appealing. In the real world, I think all writers have to do something. And if you're going to market your own book, it's a really good idea to have a good sense of who your potential readers are. If anybody ever goes to an agent or a publisher with a manuscript, be prepared for the question, who is your target audience? Because if you can't articulate that, they're going to go, well, why? You know, if you don't know who this book is for, how are we supposed to market it?
So, Mike, who's your target audience?
Well, looking around the room, I would say it's young ladies. No, it is. I mean, cosy crime, to come back to that term, or murder mysteries as an alternative. The demographic readership of that is primarily, and this is very, very broad brushstrokes, women of 18 to 40. That's sort of where they point the marketing. There's tons of outliers. I know lots. Sorry,
There's two in the room. Two non-female.
I know lots of people outside of that bracket, both in terms of age and gender, who love it. So I think it would be foolish to be too hard and fast about it. But they do clearly have, and I suppose it's reflected in things like the covers. It was interesting with the From Murder with Love one. They were very keen not to make it too macho, and I absolutely see why. So there's hints at you can see there's an Aston Martin there, there's a glass and Martini. There's sort of a nod in that direction, but it's meant to be not too too.
There's just certain demographics won't pick up on some of your nuances though, like your Murder She Wrote and your Miss Marple.
No, and that's fine. If somebody gets it, they get it, and that's great.
And detract from the book anyway if they don't get it.
No, not at all. No, I mean, I reckon I said this to you the other day. I think the only person who will get all the references in all the books is me. And there's going to be stuff.
Have a good go. I'm a similar age.
I had there's a review of Game of Murder online that says this book's meant to be about Cluedo. I couldn't find any references to Cluedo in it. I'm thinking, have you read my book? Surely this is a different Game of Murder. So at the end of the day, you have to. I was saying to somebody else not so long ago. Once it's out there, it stops being yours. Actually, it's the readers.
Isn't it?
It's and they'll take it how they want to take it. I've got no control over that. If people love it, I'm very, very happy. If they don't, or read one and don't like the next one, okay, all right. We're all different.
It's quite a different audience than the thrillers were sold to.
It is.
And I find this quite interesting because all of them, it's really strange, this demographic business, because and maybe this is just me, but it's like Yorkie bars. If someone tells me they're not for me, I want to read it. Or look at it. Yeah, I want to be able to do the whole thing. And it's quite. I do think it's quite interesting the way publishers do that and sort of just target one particular market. It seems a shame because I mean, quite a lot of friends, sort of younger, sort of who are into Douglas Adams and stuff, get your humour and really are enjoying that book, but they're not involved in any of the publicity's not going to anything like that.
No, they don't get reached by the social media posts. Yeah, and it's interesting, and also that sort of ties into the name thing. So these ones were done with my full name. When it came to the murder mysteries, I mean, they are published by a different division within HarperCollins, but the publisher there said, actually, we don't want to put them out under the name Michael Davies because people who know you already will be expecting action adventure thrillers, and these aren't that. So we talked a bit about whether I should use a pseudonym or. The other question that I again pushed back on, they said, well, what about using a female name because of the target demographic? And I didn't want to do that. It just felt a little bit, I don't know, not dishonest, I suppose. Yeah. And actually, there's plenty of people all. Yeah. I mean, the two of the biggest sellers in this genre are Richard Osman and Reverend Richard Coles. I don't know. Anyway, we settled on initials as a kind of halfway thing. But I said, I love coming out and doing events and talking to people. And I don't want to sort of have to hide.
Don't encourage it.
I don't want to have to try and hide that. It's just me.
What do you think of Richard Osman's books?
I've read a couple. I think he writes very well. I mean, again, he moves into more gritty territory than I do. Not massively, but a bit. I think. I mean, some people point at him and go, well, of course he wouldn't have the writing career he's had without having been on Pointless for however long he was on. And I don't buy that. I absolutely think he would. It helps, of course, that you've got a TV profile and that people see you and recognise you and know who you are. But I don't for 1 minute think he wouldn't have been published if he hadn't been Richard Osman. didn't answer your question, did it?
Yeah, no, because I think it's like a bit character overload.
Okay.
And I remember picking up the first of his books and just going, I can't read this. But I don't know why.
That's really interesting. I mean, you can't. It's really hard to predict how stuff's going to land. And
I mean, obviously other people love it.
Yeah.
It's really popular, but yeah, I just found it like really hard to read.
yeah. So it's a good job we're all different, isn't it?
But that's the same thing back to the demographic. Although it's aimed at a particular demographic,
Yeah.
they might just people within that demographic
Yeah.
won't even like it. They
Yeah.
pick it up and go. And we've done it in book club, haven't we?
Yeah.
You know, we've got such an eclectic mix of ideas and perspective and whatever. We've picked up books and talked about them and all come up with completely different answers to a question.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Some
That's
people have said,
fantastic.
And it's things
I can't get on
that
with
people
this
miss
book.
as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's not got, oh, what did you think about that? And you're like,
Oh, I missed that.
completely missed that.
Yeah.
About the book.
Yeah,
So-
and one of the things I love about these is that with four people in the group, you know, again, if you look at the reviews that come, some people are going, "Oh, Bella's absolutely fantastic. I want to know more about her in Game of Murder," and actually, you do learn quite a lot more about her in Game of Murder. Others are going, "Lauren does it for me. She and her brother."
What's up this, isn't it?
Yeah. And then, poor old Ford. I really feel for him. He's, you know. And what's Professor Stone's big secret? I really want to know. So, yeah, I mean, it's horses for courses, I guess.
Lovely. Any more questions?
I was just going to ask, how much say do you get in like the book cover? Are you able to go with some ideas, or do you just leave it up to the experts to kind of know how to market it? And
Yeah, that's a really good question. I was almost going to say I'm not a control freak, but Trish would have laughed a lot at that. I just come back to the luck thing. I've been incredibly fortunate with the way that they've handled these covers in particular. They've been very good about consulting me, but at the end of the day, it is their final decision, and they could overrule me if they wanted to. They haven't done that. When this first came through, I was just blown away. I thought that absolutely hits what the book is and where it's aimed so perfectly. I was delighted with it. And because this, you know, the board game thing with the card and the nods at the board game worked well with that. Interestingly, the third one, they did a cover for it and sent it to me. And I didn't like it at all. It was the exact opposite of this one. I thought it doesn't get what the book is or what it's about, what it's trying to present. So I agonised really over the reply to that one, saying why I didn't think it worked and ways that I thought it could work better. But I'm not a designer, I'm not an artist. And again, you kind of have to trust that they know what they're doing, despite what I said earlier about nobody knowing anything. So I made those suggestions and they said, yeah, okay, we'll go back to the drawing board with it. And it bore no resemblance to that whatsoever. It had a pile of books on it and a teacup on top.
And dripping blood, wasn't there?
And dripping, well, there is still some...
Oh, but not like it was in the teacup.
No. And then they came back with this one, and I went, yeah, great, okay, that's. I mean, and we have tweaked odd bits. So if you look very closely on this, the book titles that you can read on here are all the Lord Quaint novels. So there's little things that we tweaked with that. And the other thing that is easy to miss is the sort of spotlight circle. So here it's on the bookshelves. It's a bit more subtle there, and they've actually put the torch in on this one, so you know that it's a torch. So there's been a bit to and fro.
it's just a really important, like, I kind of think, I know you shouldn't judge a book by a cover, but you do, don't you? Because if you go into a bookshop, you read the backs of books that you like the look of the front of, don't you? Or unless you know an author specifically.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's an important, like, selling point, isn't it?
Oh, it absolutely
Yeah.
is, because I mean, they say never judge a book by the cover, but we all do. Of course we do. Of course we do. And they design it specifically because of that, to reach the people that they think it's
a clever process
meant to
isn't
reach. So interestingly, just picking up on that point, and I'm going to plug my newsletter now. I was talking earlier about Lucy Bennett, who designed these. She has done an exclusive interview with me for my newsletter. I do a newsletter roughly once a month. Sometimes it's 6 weeks, sometimes it's a bit less, not very often. Just to sort of keep people in touch with what's happening, you know, if there's events going on, where I'm at with the next book or what's happening. And if you want to sign up to that, we've got a form you can fill in. We're even going to entice you because we've brought some bookmarks as well, so that's an inducement to sign up for the newsletter. But in the next one, which will be out probably early April, Lucy's done this interview explaining kind of how she works, where she gets the ideas from, what she does with them, how she works with the author to come up with something. So we're exactly on that kind of territory that we're talking about.
Has she read all your books?
I don't know the answer to that. If she hasn't, she's been really well briefed. Well, she can't have read the third one because I haven't finished it. But yeah, she's. And I think that might have been the issue with the third one. The first go at it, I hadn't delivered a manuscript at all. They didn't. All they had was the pitch and the chapter breakdown. So they didn't really have a clear idea of what it was and how they wanted to present it. By the time they came up with that, they did. So I think that might have been part of the issue. It's my fault.
I suppose it's the same. It's like, you know, for an editor, they've done like all the editing. They've done it a lot of times. They've worked with like different authors and things. But I think for an author, sometimes it's like giving feedback on, I don't like that artwork. It's kind of like calling someone's baby ugly. It's like, how do I tell you that I don't like it without offending you?
Are you saying some babies are ugly?
Well, yeah.
No, you're exactly right.
I think when I had my last one, it's like, I was like, whoa. It grew into his looks.
Good job he's not in the room.
Not that one.
No, it's not that one.
I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about book covers. Yeah, that is exactly right. And I think, I don't know, I've learned over the years that you probably get a better reaction to a note that says, this isn't working for me for these reasons, than this is rubbish. But it's taken me a while to get there.
Any more questions? Yeah.
Oh,
Carl,
good,
sorry.
yes.
Sorry, I was like, if and when this series comes to an end, what other genres do you see yourself going into, if any?
Well, I think there's more mileage in Bill Kemp still, the thrillers, and for the reasons I was talking about earlier, because they're very different. I think it'd be quite nice to mix it up a bit. I've got, again, probably like most writers, stacks of ideas for stuff, and depending on how you feel when you wake up in the morning, or whether something has legs and you still like it in 6 months' time, can determine whether or not you pursue an idea. I mean, I've got my current thing is that I've got a sort of near future sci-fi thriller idea that I think might have legs, but it's completely different from these, and it's completely different from these, and whether anybody would want to pick it up and go with it, I have no idea. So, I mean, that could be another factor as well. If somebody says, actually, we'd like 3 of these, please, I'll go, okay, that's what I'm doing for the next year.
Yeah.
You know?
I suppose it comes into is like, is it on brand as well? Like, how much sense would it be for me to go from cozy murder to hard sci-fi or like high fantasy or whatever?
Another name, I think.
And well, possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, you know, Stephen King writes across a massive spread of genres, and he's sort of known for it. So it's not impossible to do. I think they probably would want another name. Isaac.
How much social media do you use to write your book?
Probably not enough, but
He makes me do it.
yeah, probably more than I'm comfortable with. I'm again really lucky. Tricia is brilliant at the promotional and marketing. And
Sorry. I have no idea what I'm doing, but we try, don't we?
None of us have got an idea what I'm doing.
We've got a son at home that occasionally we go, can we put that out? And he goes, no. Okay.
Yeah.
What about this? Oh, come on, yeah, you can put that out.
Yeah, I part of the problem is we're so old that we don't know what we're doing half
But
the
isn't it
time.
also depending on your demographic that you're aiming for? Because I'd probably pick it up and be perfectly okay with it. Whereas, you know, Isaac and maybe Chloe here are a lot younger.
Yeah.
What the heck are these old people?
Yeah.
So again, it depends on your audience, doesn't it? How it lands.
Yeah.
It does, and I think at the end of the day, all you can do is just be you and do what you do, and hope that people like it and go along with it. Because what people do sniff out is inauthenticity. If you try and, if I try to, it's like pretending to be an 18 to 35 woman as the author. I would get busted really quickly. So I don't think there's any point in trying to do that.
Yeah, we try. We said to, when this thing happened with Amazon.com, we were like, oh, this is fantastic. And the letter that went back, we said, what should we do? And they said, oh, just keep posting. So we try and keep posting. But
The other thing I do not understand about social media is that sometimes we can spend an afternoon crafting a beautiful video and put it out on all the platforms, and you get 12 views and no likes. And then you'll just throw something together in 10 minutes, and suddenly you're in the thousands. Why? What's going on?
There's a lesson. Leave it to the 10 minutes.
Just
suck it out.
Yeah.
It's like when I got that 1 million views on the most random non-video, and I'm like, why?
Yeah.
I think it's all to do with like peak times as well. Like,
Who is it?
like peak viewership times. I think it's like mid-afternoon is when the like people on lunch break.
No, I tried it again the day after,
Yeah.
and it was like 200, and I'm like,
The MC, do you really know what you're doing, or are you just making it up as you go
I don't
along?
know. It's just what I've heard. It's what I've heard from
Yeah.
well,
like
that's the
different
thing,
people.
that's
that
what we were
actually
saying
do it,
before, it's like one person will
Yeah.
say it's one thing that you need to do, someone else will say it's something else, and it's like,
Well,
but
so it depends on your
I don't know,
again.
like-
I don't work, so I can be on any time of the day.
Yeah.
Depends when I pick my phone.
I like the way you say one afternoon, honestly. Me and my son did a whole day
Yeah.
doing a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown for murder by the book. And my son said, no, you've got to do it in a person point of view. It's got to be you reach for the book and do it. So I'm trying to do this. And I said, well, how am I supposed to hold the camera? I tell you what, I had balaclava on with my phone stuck in the balaclava. So you can see the hat. I just thought, honestly. And then
Doesn't sound like it's working.
he came back and went, oh yeah, they're all right. I've been in a balaclava all day. So we try our best. Are there any more questions? Oh, well, it just remains for us to say, or you said, thank you so much for letting us be here.
Very much
tonight. And
appreciated.
thank you
as
so
well.
much for coming out. When we thought nobody'd come, but this has been lovely. Thank you very, very much. Hand over to you.
Yeah, it's really